Welcome back to Solo Mega Machine, the place where we break down finance and cryptocurrency in a way that actually makes sense without unnecessary noise or complicated terms. I'm glad you are here today because what's happening right now in the crypto space, especially around XRP, is something most people still have no idea about. While the world is still focused on the same old popular names, the big institutions and Wall Street players are quietly positioning themselves for what could be the next major shift in the financial system. Around 99% of the population doesn't truly understand what XRP is, how powerful its use case is, or why it matters for the future of global payments. That means if you're watching this right now, you are already ahead of the crowd. And being early is where real opportunities are created. If you like talking about Ripple and XRP and want to be part of this growing community, type an X in the comments section and let's see how strong the Bullion IQ family really is. Also, don't forget to smash that like button because it helps push this information to others who want to learn and grow in the financial space. In today's breakdown, I'm going to walk you through what's currently happening with XRP, the growing interest from Wall Street, and why this could be a critical moment for the asset. Recently, XRP has been outperforming many of the other top digital assets, moving up while others are either struggling or moving sideways. That kind of performance is not just luck, it usually signals that demand is increasing and bigger players are starting to step in. One of the most important developments right now is the launch and growing volume of XRP exchange-traded funds, also known as ETFs. Multiple firms have started getting involved, and we are already seeing millions of dollars in volume coming in through these products. Even though only a few XRP-related ETFs have launched so far, the interest they are attracting is impressive. At the same time, we've seen Bitcoin ETFs experiencing major outflows with billions moving out instead of in. That is a very important contrast. It suggests that large investors are not just randomly moving money around. Instead, they are slowly rotating capital into assets that offer stronger utility, clearer compliance, and real-world application. XRP is starting to look more and more like one of the top choices in that category. Another key factor to consider is regulation. For years, uncertainty around regulations has held back many crypto projects, but now we appear to be getting closer to clearer rules and guidelines. For XRP and Ripple, this could be a massive catalyst. Ripple has always positioned itself to work with banks, governments, and financial institutions instead of trying to avoid them. That approach makes XRP far more attractive to institutions that need safety, structure, and legal clarity before they invest. Wall Street doesn't operate on hype or emotion. It operates on data, long-term vision, and compliance. And right now, XRP is lining up perfectly with what they look for in a serious financial asset. We're also hearing more discussion around potential interest rate cuts in the future. When rate cuts happen, more money usually flows into risk assets and investment markets. That new liquidity has to go somewhere, and large investors will look for assets that are undervalued but have strong fundamentals. If XRP continues to show increasing demand along with limited available supply on exchanges, it could lead to a supply shock. In simple terms, if more people and institutions want to buy XRP while fewer people are willing to sell it, the price has only one logical direction to go, and that is up. Right now, what matters most is mindset and patience. The crypto market has been full of fear, doubt, and negativity for a long time, and a lot of people already gave up. But smart investors understand that the best opportunities are created when everyone else is distracted, scared, or sleeping on the truth. Fundamentals around XRP and Ripple have never looked stronger than they do today. Institutions are paying attention, infrastructure is being built, and demand is starting to show itself in the numbers. This could be the early stage of something very big. And at Bullion IQ, we make sure you're on the right side of that story. Now, let's go a little deeper into the numbers and what they actually mean for XRP in the wider market. A lot of people hear about millions in volume or institutional flows, but they don't really stop to understand how powerful that is. Right now, XRP-focused ETFs are starting to record strong activity from different investment firms. We have names like Rex Osprey, Canary Capital, Bitwise, Amplify, Gayscale, and Franklin Templeton all stepping into this space. These are not small random companies. These are serious players with deep connections and access to large pools of money. When firms like these decide to move into a specific asset, it is usually because they see long-term value and future demand building up in that area. Even though XRP only recently started getting this kind of ETF exposure, the volume numbers are already hitting into the millions of dollars. That is happening on day one, or within the first few days for some of these products. At the same time, Bitcoin ETFs, which have been around longer and usually get most of the attention, have recently seen billions of dollars flowing out. That is a major signal. It doesn't mean Bitcoin is dead, but it does mean that big money is starting to look somewhere else for the next opportunity. And right now, that somewhere else is starting to look a lot like XRP. This is what many people miss. Markets move in cycles, and money is always searching for the best return. When something becomes too crowded, smart investors slowly leave and start building positions in assets that are still underappreciated by the public. That is how big profits are made. XRP seems to be at the start of that phase. For years, it was held back by legal battles, uncertainty, and negative news. Now that many of those issues are becoming clearer, institutions feel more confident stepping in. And when they step in, they do not buy small amounts. They buy in size with a long-term vision in mind. There is also another big concept coming into play here, and that is the idea of a supply shock. XRP has a fixed supply, and a very large portion of it is either locked up, held by long-term believers, or being used in different systems. If demand keeps increasing because of ETFs, banks, payment solutions, and institutional interest, while the available supply on the open market remains limited, basic economics takes over. When a lot of people want something that is limited in quantity, the value of that thing usually rises. It doesn't happen overnight, but the pressure builds up over time, and eventually it can lead to a strong price move that surprises most people. Another important detail is that institutions do not usually rush in all at once. They test the waters first. They start with millions, not billions. But if they see strong performance, growing interest, and stable structure, that is when they scale up. What we are seeing right now with XRP could be that early testing phase. They are watching how the market reacts, how the community responds, and how the infrastructure holds up. If everything continues to look positive, those millions can quickly become tens of millions and eventually billions. At the same time, the overall financial environment is shifting, and there is talk about possible future rate cuts. And anytime that happens, more liquidity enters the market. That extra money does not just sit in banks. It moves into assets, stocks, commodities, and digital currencies. Investors will be looking for projects that are ready for mass adoption. XRP, with its fast transaction speed, low cost, and strong partnerships, fits perfectly into that future vision of finance. It is not just another coin. It is part of a bigger plan to upgrade how money moves around the world. This is why it is so important to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Daily price movements, small drops, or short-term corrections should not distract you from what is being built right now. Behind the scenes, institutions are positioning themselves, new financial products are launching, real-world use cases are expanding, and XRP is slowly but surely moving from being just another crypto to becoming a serious part of the global financial conversation. That is not hype. That is based on actions, money movement, and long-term strategy. Now let's shift the focus from just numbers and flows to something even more important, and that is utility and real-world purpose. In the long run, the assets that survive and grow are not the ones with the loudest hype, but the ones that actually solve real problems. This is where XRP and Ripple separate themselves from most of the crypto space. While many projects are still searching for a clear direction, Ripple has always had a clear mission. improve global payments, reduce friction in cross-border transactions, and make the movement of money faster, cheaper, and more efficient. That mission is not just talk. It is backed by technology, partnerships, and years of development. Traditional banking systems are slow and expensive, especially when it comes to sending money across borders. Sometimes a simple international transfer can take several days and cost a surprising amount in fees. Ripple's technology, using XRP as a bridge asset, can settle transactions in seconds at a fraction of that cost. For banks and financial institutions, that is a game changer. They are not interested in memes or speculation. They care about speed, cost, efficiency, and reliability. XRP provides all of those things. This is one of the main reasons why financial institutions are starting to pay more attention now. In the past, some of them were hesitant because of regulatory questions or uncertainty in the crypto market, but that environment is slowly changing. Ripple has been pushing for clarity and working with regulators instead of fighting against the system. That approach makes institutions far more comfortable. Once something is seen as compliant and structured, it becomes investable. That is a huge step forward, and XRP is now much closer to that level than it has ever been before. There is also the network effect to consider. As more institutions, payment providers, and financial companies begin using Ripple's technology, the value of that network grows. When a network grows, the demand for the asset connected to that network also increases. Think of it like this. The more roads that are built in a city, the more valuable that city becomes for business, trade, and life. XRP is becoming the digital highway for moving value around the world, and the more connections it gets, the more important it becomes. Another thing people often forget is that markets are driven by psychology. For a long time, XRP was surrounded by doubt and negative headlines that kept many investors away, but sentiment is slowly starting to shift. As more positive developments occur, as more large companies get involved, and as more people start to understand the real use case, confidence begins to come back. And when confidence returns to a market, money follows. On top of that, we are entering a time when digital assets are no longer seen as just for tech people or just for gamblers. Governments, banks, and even large corporations are exploring blockchain technology for everyday use. Tokenized real estate, digital identity, instant settlement systems, and global payment networks are becoming real topics of discussion. XRP is positioned right in the middle of all of this. It is built for speed and scale, exactly what large systems need. This is what makes the current moment so interesting. Price is one thing, but position is another. Even if a price does not explode overnight, the foundation being built today could support massive growth in the future. Smart investors know that you do not wait until everything is obvious. By then, the biggest move is already over. The real opportunity usually shows up when there is still doubt in the air. And right now, there are still plenty of people who do not understand XRP. Ironically, that is exactly what makes it so attractive to those who do. This is why patience and vision are so important. You are not just holding a digital token. You are holding a piece of a future financial network that is still being built. Every new partnership, every new product, every new regulation that brings clarity adds another brick to that foundation. And once that foundation is complete, it becomes very difficult to ignore. Let's now focus on institutional involvement and why it matters more than ever for XRP. Institutions, meaning large investors like hedge funds, banks, and investment firms, do not make decisions lightly. They have entire teams of analysts, legal advisors, and risk managers, and they carefully evaluate every potential investment. When they start moving into an asset like XRP, it is a signal that something fundamental is changing. They see long-term value and are positioning themselves to benefit from it. Unlike retail investors who might act emotionally, institutions move slowly, but with purpose. Their entry into XRP is like a stamp of approval, showing that the asset is now part of serious financial conversations. ETF activity is a major part of the story. Exchange-traded funds make it easier for institutions and everyday investors to buy into a cryptocurrency without holding it directly. They offer a regulated structure and give investors confidence that their exposure is safe and compliant. Right now, XRP ETFs have started attracting significant volume from major firms, including Grayscale, Franklin Templeton, and others. On launch day alone, some of these ETFs recorded millions of dollars in inflows. That is impressive because it shows that investors are not waiting for a perfect moment. They are actively seeking exposure. Now, for context, Bitcoin ETFs, which are much older and more established, have recently seen capital outflows. This contrast highlights that smart money is looking for growth and utility rather than following past trends. Another big factor is regulatory clarity. XRP is always focused on working with financial systems rather than bypassing them. That means as governments and regulators provide clearer guidelines, Ripple is already in a position to benefit. For large institutions, regulatory clarity is a green light. Without it, they would avoid any asset due to risk. Now, with the potential for clear rules and oversight, XRP becomes an attractive candidate for serious investment. This is why the current inflows into XRP ETFs are more meaningful than just a short-term price bump. They represent confidence in Ripple's structure, compliance, and future potential. We also need to consider the role of liquidity. Central banks and governments influence markets through monetary policy, including interest rate decisions. If rates are cut, more liquidity enters the financial system. That liquidity does not stay idle. It seeks returns. Investors will look for assets that offer growth, stability, and utility. XRP fits into all three categories. With its fast transaction times, low cost, and real-world banking partnerships, it becomes a prime candidate for this incoming capital. In other words, when the financial environment becomes flush with liquidity, XRP is well positioned to benefit. The combination of institutional demand, regulatory clarity, and growing utility could lead to a supply-demand imbalance. XRP has a fixed supply, and much of it is held or locked up in various ecosystems. As more investors and institutions seek exposure, the available XRP and circulation could shrink. When demand rises while supply remains limited, the result is upward pressure on price. Economically, this is simple, but it has a major impact when large sums of money are involved. This is what people mean when they talk about a potential supply shock for XRP. It's not speculation. It's basic economics amplified by institutional participation. Finally, it's important to remember the human side of investing. While technical charts, numbers, and volume are all critical, psychology drives markets. FOMO, fear of missing out, starts when enough investors see value and start buying in. Early adopters like you and me, who understand XRP's potential, have an advantage because we can act before the broader market catches on. By staying informed, focused, and patient, we can position ourselves alongside the smart money rather than chasing price spikes blindly. Let's take a closer look at how smart money and retail investors can think about timing and strategy with XRP. One of the most important lessons in investing is that it's rarely about chasing the highest price. It's about understanding the trends, the fundamentals, and positioning yourself ahead of big moves. Right now, XRP is attracting attention from both Wall Street and retail investors, but the difference is in how each group approaches it. Institutions look at long-term potential, regulatory clarity, and utility, while many retail investors focus on short-term price swings. By understanding what institutions are doing, we can align our thinking with theirs instead of reacting emotionally to daily market noise. XRP's unique position as a utility-focused asset makes it stand out. Unlike coins that are primarily speculative or community-driven, XRP has partnerships with financial institutions around the world. These relationships are not just marketing claims. They are real-world connections that allow Ripple to process cross-border transactions efficiently. Every time a bank or financial institution integrates XRP into their system, it validates the asset and increases its utility. This is something that takes time to develop, but the impact on price and demand can be substantial once more players adopt it. The ETF numbers are another layer to watch carefully. Millions are being funneled into XRP ETFs from firms like Grayscale, Franklin Templeton, and others. While Bitcoin ETFs have recently experienced outflows, XRP is pulling in fresh capital at a record pace. This is not just a short-term trend, it's a rotation of capital toward assets that show strong fundamentals and compliance. When you combine this with regulatory clarity that's on the horizon, you can see how XRP is moving from a niche asset to something that could become central in institutional portfolios. It's like being in a room before the lights turn on. Those who enter early see the space and opportunity before everyone else. Another crucial point is the potential for a supply-demand imbalance, which could lead to what many analysts call a supply shock. XRP has a fixed supply, and much of it is either locked up or held by long-term believers. If demand continues to rise from ETFs, institutional investments, and global partnerships, the available XRP in circulation could tighten. This scarcity, combined with increasing demand, can push prices higher in ways that are sustainable because the foundation is strong. Unlike speculative pumps driven by hype alone, this is grounded in economics, real use cases, and financial strategy. We should also consider broader market dynamics. Central banks are discussing potential interest rate cuts, which would bring additional liquidity into markets. That money needs a place to go, and XRP, with its fast transactions, low costs, and banking partnerships, is positioned as a prime candidate. This means that external macroeconomic events combined with internal adoption and institutional support can create a powerful growth environment for XRP. It's not just about crypto hype, it's about positioning within the future financial system. Finally, let's talk about psychology and patience. XRP has been through periods of skepticism, negativity, and uncertainty, but fundamentals don't lie. Waiting can feel difficult, but strategic patience often separates successful investors from those who miss the opportunity. By paying attention to real-world adoption, institutional flows, and regulatory clarity, you are aligning yourself with the smart money. That's far more powerful than chasing daily price swings or reacting to social media hype. The groundwork being laid now may lead to a strong, sustainable uptrend over the next months and years. Let's wrap everything up and look at what this all means for XRP holders, investors, and anyone paying attention to the future of crypto. What we are seeing right now is more than just price movement or hype. It's a combination of institutional adoption, real-world utility, regulatory clarity, and growing market awareness. XRP is positioning itself not just as a digital asset, but as a cornerstone in a new type of financial system. That is a level of credibility that few cryptocurrencies can claim. When you combine all these factors, it's clear why smart money is moving in and why the broader market is starting to take notice. One of the key takeaways is the importance of staying informed. Markets move fast, but opportunities are usually recognized first by those who do their research, understand the fundamentals, and can see beyond short-term fluctuations. XRP's story is not about sudden spikes, it's about steady, meaningful growth driven by actual adoption and use. Institutions are increasingly recognizing that, and the numbers back it up. Millions of dollars are flowing into XRP ETFs, while other assets are seeing capital leave. This is a rotation, and it shows where smart money believes the next wave of opportunity lies. Watching these trends closely can give you insight into timing and potential moves in the market. Another critical point is patience and discipline. It's easy to get caught up in daily price changes or sensational headlines, but true investors focus on fundamentals and long-term positioning. XRP has faced its share of challenges over the years, but it has also built a robust network, strong partnerships, and a clear use case. The combination of utility, compliance, and institutional interest creates a foundation that is hard to ignore. By staying patient and aligned with these trends, you position yourself alongside the early movers who benefit the most when the broader market finally catches on. Liquidity and macroeconomic factors are also important to watch. With potential interest rate cuts and additional liquidity entering the financial system, investors will be seeking assets that combine safety with growth potential. XRP fits that description perfectly. It offers fast settlement, low transaction costs, and real-world application. That makes it attractive not just to crypto enthusiasts, but to serious investors who need compliance and reliability. This environment could create an ideal scenario for XRP to see continued inflows, and even a potential supply-demand imbalance, which historically drives price increases over time. Finally, let's remember the human factor, psychology and perception. XRP has been underestimated by many, but as more institutions, media outlets, and retail investors recognize its value, confidence will grow. Early adopters like you, who understand the technology, utility, and strategy behind XRP, have an advantage. The excitement will build gradually as adoption increases, and those who position themselves now are likely to see significant long-term benefits. This is not just about short-term gains. It's about understanding the system, the strategy, and the story behind XRP. Before we close, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting Bullion IQ. Your engagement, comments, and likes help this community grow, and together we are learning to navigate this complex world of finance and crypto. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future updates. XRP is showing the early signs of what could be one of the most interesting growth stories in crypto history. Institutions are moving, ETFs are launching, and fundamentals are stronger than ever. This is the moment to stay informed, stay patient, and stay confident in your strategy. So remember, this is about being smart, being early, and understanding the trends before the masses. Watch the ETFs, track institutional flows, follow regulatory updates, and most importantly, keep learning. XRP is more than a coin. It's a gateway into the next generation of financial infrastructure. Stick with Bullion IQ, and we will continue breaking it all down in simple, understandable terms, so you always know what's happening and why it matters.